How's it going, everyone? This is Adam from Slurv, Ship My Money on DraftKings, and I'll be breaking down today's pitching slate for you for June 1st. Today's a pretty easy day, I think. There's a handful of pitchers that I think are playable, and then just some really obvious hitting spots that you probably need to pay up for. So starting with cash game pitchers, on DraftKings, I really like pairing Max Scherzer and Albert Suarez. Scherzer's 13,200. Suarez is 4,000. Scherzer's in the safest, high upside matchup today against the Phillies, and I think will be really popular. Outside of him, the top priced guys don't have a lot of upside, I don't think, and the mid priced guys are a little riskier than I would like in cash. So I want to just go all the way down to Suarez at 4,000. He's not a strikeout guy, but he's got a nice matchup with the Braves. He's a fly ball pitcher, and the Braves don't have power, and it's not a good hitter's park. And at 4,000, he's a favorite, and you just hope he goes out and gets you 12 to 15 DraftKings points, and then you have money left over for the bats that you're going to need to win in cash today. On FanDuel, I'm fine with Scherzer. He's 10,700, and I think since you don't have the second pitcher that you can pay down at, you're gonna end up with like Scherzer, and then pick the expensive bats that you want, and then you'll have to find some value bats also. But I do think Scherzer's the best pitcher in cash today, just because of the combination of floor and ceiling that he has. Moving into GPPs, I think Scherzer's okay. I prefer Scherzer on FanDuel than DraftKings. He's priced cheaper, and the options around him, there's not the disparity in price that there is on DraftKings. On DraftKings, I prefer John Lester to Scherzer. Scherzer has more upside, but Lester's priced at 9,900, which is over $3,000 cheaper than Scherzer. And if you look at, like Scherzer obviously has massive upside, like he showed in the game against Detroit, but I think that you can fade him today because, yes, he has that upside, but you're just kind of playing the odds that he doesn't get there. And, like as good as he's been this year with strikeouts and everything, he's only broke 30 DraftKings points twice, and one of those times was 35. The other time was the game against the Tigers. So, if you fade him, you're just accepting that if he has a game like he did against the Tigers, you lose. But, if he puts up 30 points, then on a point per dollar basis, you only need 22.5 from Lester. And going to Lester gives you another $3,000 to spend on hitters. So you basically just need that $3,000 to get you like an RBI double. And you've passed the teams that have Scherzer over Lester, as long as Lester equals Scherzer on that point per dollar basis, which I think today is really likely. And so that's why I prefer going a little cheaper than Scherzer in GPPs, even though the guys actually don't have the same upside as Scherzer. I think today's just a weird day where I don't want to pay all the way up for that upside, I don't think. Along with Lester, I like Tanaka at 10,400. I prefer Lester just because he's a little cheaper, and I think they're pretty similar in that Lester's a better strikeout pitcher against a team that strikes out a little bit less, but the team Tanaka's facing hits a little bit better than the team Lester's facing. I just think they're pretty similar from an upside standpoint and probably from a floor standpoint. I just want to take the savings on Lester. I like Fulmer and Schumacher. I'm interested in both of them on DraftKings. Fulmer 7,500, Schumacher 7,100. Fulmer's facing an Angels team that has definitely been hitting better lately, but they chase a lot of pitches out of the zone, and I think the Angels, you can strike out the Angels as long as you have good stuff, which Fulmer does. So I'm not really afraid to target Fulmer in this matchup. And Schumacher, has been really good. He's been throwing his splitter a lot, and just been really successful his last two games. And he's still not expensive, so I like his upside against the Tigers. And then I think that Suarez is still in play for GPPs as well. I think he'll be popular. Dylan Gee was, I think, 20% owned in the $333 tournament on DraftKings last night. But tonight's just a night where you have to pay up for bats, I think. And so, I think the best way to go about it is probably going to be to roster Suarez. Um, Over on FanDuel, Scherzer, I think, is in play for GPPs because Lester's like $100 less, and at that point, obviously, you just want to pay for the upside instead of um, going with Lester because you're not getting a difference in price. And then basically below Scherzer, I just like Schumacher and Fulmer are, they're still in play, but I'd probably prefer just going all the way down to, Suarez at 6,500 or even lower to Christian Friedrich at 5,700, I believe. Um, he's an underdog, but Felix Hernandez was scratched, so, there's an easy path to a win for him. I mean, the Padres can easily beat James Paxton, and Friedrich's been pitching pretty well. A lot of his career numbers are inflated because he spent a lot of time pitching for the Rockies. But, he's pitched well enough this year, and at 5,700, he lets you fit in like all the top bats that you want on FanDuel, where it's harder to do so since you don't have like two pitchers, like I said earlier, like so you can't just punt your second pitcher. Moving into the bats I want to target, today's just a day where I think I'm going to go pretty chalky and just look to differentiate within those stacks as opposed to fading the popular teams because I think there's a huge gap between the chalk teams today and everywhere else. So the Rockies are just like they're going to be in every lineup I make today because John Lamb, like he's talented, but he's going to go 4 or 5 innings most likely, and then you get the Reds bullpen. And the Rockies today also give you a nice spot because you can pay up for Blackmon and Gonzalez, and people probably won't. People will go with the righties in the Rockies lineup to get exposure and to save money. So you can basically get the best hitters on the Rockies who will probably be facing, bullpen arms by the 5th inning and be different at the same time as long as you save enough money a pitcher. Trevor Story on DraftKings is another one who I expect to kind of not be too popular today, even though he's facing a lefty in Coors Field because Carlos Correa is priced completely wrong. He's 3,600, and Story I think is 5,200 on DraftKings. So I assume people will get whatever Rockies bats they want, but then go Correa at shortstop because it lets them afford it. I think today's a really good Coors day on DraftKings because they'll still be popular, but I think if you pay up for all the best like hitters in Coors, regardless, ignoring that they're facing a lefty for the first 4 innings of the game, I think you'll end up being a little bit different than other teams. And then, I like the Astros a lot. They're facing Robbie Ray. Ray isn't terrible, but the Astros have just, they're such a high upside team, and they're playing at home. I think it's a good spot because Ray does struggle a lot against righties, and the Astros have a lot of them. So that's a good spot. I think if I get off those two teams, it'll probably just be to get some Tigers exposure or Red Sox exposure. The Red Sox are a team that could definitely go overlooked today since, the Rockies scored 17 runs last night. So I definitely don't mind getting Red Sox exposure against Mike Wright, fly ball pitcher in Camden Yards against, a lot of power bats. And the Tigers, I think, are an interesting play today because I assume Schumacher will be pretty popular, and it's a nice leverage play because if he goes back to being the pitcher he was before the last 2 starts, you've got a lot of right-handed power bats that can put up some big numbers, while at the same time the 20% or whatever that played Schumacher are losing points. So that's what I'm thinking for right now. Stop into the Slurve chat throughout the day. I'll be in there a little bit off and on. And we have the expert chat tonight at 5 Eastern, so definitely stop in for that as, we'll have more information once lineups come out. Good luck tonight, guys.